Welcome everyone, you are watching Servier Purchasing Channel, and here are the main stories today. Beginning with the COVID crisis, we will go at the international to meet our special reporters that will explain to us what action they put in place to secure their local sites during the worldwide pandemic. Following with the Baalbek crisis, we will go in Normandy and we'll talk about the incident that took place in December 2021. Through our special reporter on site, we will understand what action was put in place to ensure the business continuity of the site. Our final story will concern the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Through our 4 special reporters at the purchasing frontline, we will understand what actions are going on a day-to-day basis to secure the business of Servier. Beginning with the COVID crisis, let's go meet our special reporter, Michael Delou, responsible for the international coordination. Hello, Michael.
Thank you, Marie. Yes, today I would like to come back to the COVID crisis we have all been through and to highlight the commitment of the purchasing organization worldwide to support the business continuity of a site, and as well to highlight the added value of a purchasing organization in case of that kind of crisis. So let's share the experience of 3 purchasing manager, Hélène in the Tianjin site, Fadi in the Cairo site, and Rosemary in Arclos site. So let's go, Marie, to Tianjin first.
Hello, Michael. Yes, COVID-19 really changed our daily life a lot. I saw a short video yesterday. It was the speech made by Harvard University president for 2022. In Tianjin plant, we built a new workshop and we bought a lot of new machines for the new workshop. And because of the COVID-19, European suppliers, they cannot assign engineers to Tianjin for machine setup, but we cannot wait. So we have to take actions. Otherwise, we cannot support business needs. So after several round discussion with supplier, we found a solution to conduct the machine setup, IQ, OQ through online support. So finally, with a lot of efforts, both from supplier side and our internal team, we succeed with the machine setup. Another example I want to share, you may see the cap and tubes in my hand, is also another important project in China to develop a local cap and tube supplier. But we finished this project totally through online support from project central purchasing and project team. We held more than 20 times online meeting and solved all kinds of technical issues, qualified drawings, and finally we achieved all the project milestones on time, no any delay. And currently the supplier had already started to supply commercial batch to us. Another example, I think everybody will have the same feeling, is the difficulty on logistics. In order to get the material on time, I think we really deal with a lot of logistic difficulties. But till now, there's no finished goods shipment delay to China market from Tianjin side. So it's really not easy. And sometimes, a lot of times, it was difficulty to find flights from Europe to China. So I think for European colleagues, you also did a lot of efforts to ensure the delivery material to us on time. So thanks for that. And then finally, I will say there's still a lot of uncertainty and challenge in the future, but we will ready for change.
Hello from Servier Egypt. Hope everyone is well and safe. COVID-19 pandemic had a major impact all over the globe, where each and every country and industry were impacted in several ways. In Servier Egypt, we had major impact on purchasing supply chain activities as well as on the operational process as well. One of the major impact was material availability and price inflation of the material. where one of the critical situations we had to manage is making the material available at the right timing and with the least price inflation possible. Also, shipping lead time and cost was one of the big problems we faced, where huge shipment delays were experienced and of course shipping costs increased dramatically. All the previously mentioned reasons had a great impact on the stock coverage on our site, where we were forced to increase our coverage of material and finished products as much as possible in order to be able to serve our market without any stock out of our major products, taking into concern the delays we are facing in material availability and shipping as well. From operational process point of view, and since safety of our employees was one of our big concerns, we operated daily on continuous shifts and dividing our employees across the shift and taking all the safety precautions needed. Thus trying to keep the productivity of our site as high as much as possible and also keeping the safety of our employees on our first concern and keeping them safe, especially during the high peaks of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hello, Mikael, and thanks a lot. Here's how we've experienced the COVID crisis on our site. I'm Rosemary O'Brien and I'm the purchasing manager at the Arklow production site in Ireland. And I'd like to share with you today about our experiences during and post-COVID. From early March 2020, we became aware of a virus in China rapidly spreading across the globe. We saw how our colleagues in China were being impacted and we immediately took measures to anticipate. We set up a COVID crisis committee with daily meetings. We began by asking ourselves a basic question: what could stop production and thereby impact our patients' needs? With this in mind, we assessed our inventory levels and risk managed our supply chains. We knew that many of our key suppliers had a heavy reliance on suppliers from China, particularly for PPE. We knew that a global shortage of steel, aluminium, paperboard, etc. would cause a panic, and that's why we quickly managed the inventory challenges. We increased our orders early, knowing that these items would get used. We made masks for our staff, allowing us to keep the surgical ones for our production needs. Together with our vendors, we sourced and validated alternative sources for gloves, coveralls, shoes, etc. We worked closely with our colleagues in supply chain, quality, and in IS to develop reporting tools to help us to assess the inventory levels and to anticipate our future demands. We developed a partnership approach with our main vendors, sharing forecasts and deadlines openly and honestly. During the Brexit crisis the previous year, we were already carrying good stocks of excipients and spare parts for our process equipment, and this protected us somewhat from delayed deliveries due to new border restrictions and container shortages which were also being experienced. Our main packaging suppliers are local to the site, and in cooperation, we planned to ensure that we met our site's needs. Staff shortages were another challenge for us, and also for our suppliers. It was difficult to guarantee the delivery to site and from site. We were still expected to carry out the purchase plan, as in to spend our CapEx budget and to continue the NEO implementation journey. Getting a firm price and a firm commitment from suppliers was not always easy. Despite everything, we were managing to keep our local costs under control, and by the end of 2021, we were beginning to breathe again, when suddenly, almost 24 months to the day, we had a further challenge to deal with when the Ukraine was invaded. Thank you very much, and on behalf of the Arklow site, good luck to everybody with the future challenge.
Following this edition, we will now talk about the Baalbek crisis. We will go in Normandy to meet our special reporter Sophia Craig, who will explain to us what action were put in place in order to secure the business at Auril during this incident. Hello, Sophia.
And suddenly, you're facing destiny. Although having anticipated these situations, if there's no cure against fire, reactivity is the remedy. As a Seviso site, Auril in France has been able to defend itself thanks to the preparation and careful monitoring of the POI. The internal operation plan is mandatory for industries presenting major technological risks. Aurel organizes exercises throughout the year at its 2 sites in Normandy, Bolbec and Baclair. Those involved in the POI are therefore regularly confronted with scenarios related to the activity of a chemical production site and its risks, without knowing the content in advance. Should an event occur, all those involved in the POI work closely with the internal and external fire departments and the local authorities to manage the incident, take care of the victims, but also to communicate on the site and with the outside population. Unfortunately, and despite high quality and safety standards, the fire spread within the EP2 workshop following the ignition of solvent vapors by static electricity discharge during a manipulation, seriously injuring a production operator evacuated by helicopter. This workshop is used for drying and grinding the powders of several active ingredients. 6 of the 15 active ingredients in Aurel are treated here: perindopril, agomelatine, atorvastatin, indapamide, ivabradine and peribadil. Since 1960, Aurel's teams have been developing, producing and shipping 98% of active ingredients to the Servier Group's industrial pharmaceutical sites. The EP2 workshop represents 1.4 billion euros of the group's originator sales. By bringing our workshops to a halt, the fire could therefore seriously affect production activities and ultimately the health of many patients. Fortunately, Aurel's internal teams, the industry department, as well as the group's crisis unit, were able to mobilize immediately to manage the disaster, but also to minimize the impact on production in order to ensure the continuity of supply of medicines to patients. In addition to noting and repairing the damage caused by the fire and the water spilled by firefighters, but also by sprinklers, many works were carried out to rehabilitate the buildings and allow a resumption of the activity under certain conditions, clearly stated by the authorities. In this context, corrective measures have been reinforced and implemented by Aurel's teams to accentuate the safety culture via the reinforcement of measures against static electricity, new targeted training for operators, or new protective equipment. At the same time, production was reorganized collectively via different levers. Drying was transferred to other workshops in Bolbec and Baclair, but also to the Toledo site in Spain, before returning to Aurel to complete the various stages of production. Perindopril albumine was also purchased externally, which required significant regulatory work. And after only 2 months, activity levels have almost been entirely restored.
Task force were set up. Purchasing played a key role in the repairing and the restoring of the building and identifying external levers. The whole purchasing department here locally was involved in these 2 task forces, and we coordinated daily with them, Cecilia, who in her turn coordinated with the crisis unit at the head office. For the repairing and the restoring of the building, purchasing was at the heart of the operations. They were working with the technical team daily, and the global spend for the repairing and the restoring of the building was around 3 million euro. They also played an important role in coordinating with the insurance company. For the second task force, it was in this room where it all took place. So this is the room where the task force working on external levers met daily as well. This task force was made up of people from a technical, regulatory, service CDMO and purchasing background. Our focus was on Perandapril. Perandapril arginine for our plant is 42 tons and 1 million of sales for the group. So we had to find solutions. We had to find a way of moving forward. It was on these walls that we wrote every possible solution that we could think of. So the solutions were related to internal manufacturing, external manufacturing, purchasing raw materials, and also hiring equipment. Each solution was evaluated on 2 key criteria. The first being the feasibility. Is it possible from a regulatory point of view? Is it possible from a technical point of view? And secondly, how long would it take? How long would it take to implement the solution? We needed to go fast. From all these solutions here, one solution that came out as being the most interesting for us was purchasing directly Perandapril Herbimide. Perandapril Herbimide can be purchased directly and in one chemical step can be transformed directly into Perandapril arginine, which means we reduce the number of chemical steps from 8 to 1 chemical step. So this is really interesting for us to be able to accelerate our production. So the hunt was on, where could we purchase Perandapril Herbimide? So to help us with this, our colleague Maud came on board to come and help us identify potential suppliers of Perandapril Herbimide on the market. The different suppliers are all over the world. At the beginning we had 9 suppliers and we decided to rank our suppliers based on criteria. The criteria was suggested by purchasing, approved by quality, and quickly we had only 3 suppliers left. And finally we chose one last supplier, which is Wuwei, who here is based in China. So by mid-February we had 2 tons of Perandapril Herbimide that were delivered to our plant, and ever since we have purchased a further 6 tons of Perandapril Herbimide coming from Wuwei plant in China. By purchasing the Perandapril Herbimide, this has contributed to ensuring that the patients will always receive their medicine.
Finally, we will end this edition with a special information regarding the ongoing conflict for Ukraine and Russia. We'll talk with Ekaterina Erdosheva, responsible for the raw material, with Anne Pasteur regarding the packaging materials, with Amina Benaber regarding the CAPEX, and finally we will have a big conclusion from the supply chain director at Sofino. Let's watch it.
Hello dear colleagues, my name is Ekaterina, Raw Material Category Manager from GD side. Today we continue to face a high price increase on our excipients and availability pressure from our manufacturers worldwide. From the beginning of this conflict, I do all my best together with supply chain team to help Sofino with raw material supplies. This conflict has complicated all logistic chain from Europe to Russia. Some European manufacturers don't wish supply our Russian side with raw material. For example, our historical distributor of gelatin refused to supply this material to Russia. We contacted several times with BP Gelatin to find a new distributor able to deliver and to be validated by Russian vet authorities. And in a very short time, lots of mails, phone calls, new payment terms, new contract signs in a couple of days. All administrative tasks have been done under extremely short deadlines. Now the source is secured. Also, we organized an additional logistic flow together with GD based on their logistic platform, Dore. And what I want to say, all these difficulties which we face now force us to find a new alternative source in China, India, Japan. For the raw material, we do everything possible to ensure continuous production on Sofino's side. Thank you very much for your attention, and I give the floor to Anne, Packaging Material Category Manager. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Katia, for the raw material. Now we will speak about packaging. For packaging, we encountered 3 different problems related to the Russian-Ukrainian crisis. The first one is because suppliers were afraid not to be paid by Sofino or to be paid in rubles instead of euro. It is the reason why we make with the legal department, with the help, a letter of guarantee that allow Sofino plants to be delivered on time and not to have to prepaid for the deliveries. The second point is that new sanction appears regularly. We must be at the 6th or 7th wave of sanction. For those products who are concerned by the new sanction, if you have not ordered before April 9 or if you are delivered after July 9, you can't be delivered of the packaging. That is the reason why you have to order before April 9 and to receive before July 9. If it's not the case, you have to see with the authorities if it's possible to receive the packaging. And the third case, is regarding supplier, not linked to sanction, but it's in reaction to the war. Some supplier doesn't want to deliver supplier located in Russia, and that's the reason why we have to speak with tier second supplier for us. He will deliver Delray located in GD, near GD, and then Delray will deliver Sofino, Sofino will deliver the supplier, and the supplier will be able to produce the packaging for us. That's it. Now I let Amin explain the difficulties he encounters with his equipment. Amin, do you need a hammer?
Thank you, Anne, for your presentation. Now I'm going to speak about the CapEx and Ukraine-Russia crisis. So what we should know is Russia exports less than 1% of the global CapEx requirements, so they do not have a well-established supply base for manufacturing, for the capital equipment to meet their local demand in export. So the Russian Federation is highly reliable on imports on the CapEx segment. And the main imports are coming from countries like Germany, China, Italy, and the USA, which they represent altogether around 60% of their import, highly depending on those countries. There have been strategies like within 2030 that the Russian Federation will become more autonomous in terms of CapEx with local manufacturing market to become self-sufficient in farm and food manufacturing. But it's not the case today, and the Russia suffers a lot from this. What we should know also is that the Russian market is one of the largest markets, so it's the third largest and the fifth largest importer of German and Italian-made processing and packaging equipment, respectively. So we have noticed a high impact in terms of turnover and in terms of financial risk for those global suppliers. Nevertheless, for the moment, it seems to be under control, and there is no high warning that are in place. Nevertheless, we notice also that there are some big players in terms of CapEx. In order to mention a couple of them, we have Atlas Corpo and Park and Hanfin, which are both air handling companies. And they both have announced that they are closing their operations in Russia, and they have informed the market that they are closing their warehouses and also suspend the engineering services to the product that they have supplied previously. It's also the case for the German supplier Siemens, so it's a global company, and they have announced that they ordered wind down of the operations in Russia and Belarus. They had informed that their manufacturing sites in Moscow and also St. Petersburg are shut down with immediate effect. So for this supplier today, clearly we cannot have any of their parts, knowing that it's a key supplier. In terms of conflict, so this conflict created a high shortage in terms of ship-making materials that are used in a lot of machines, not to say in all our machines today. And over 90% of the US semiconductor grades neon supplies come from Ukraine, while 35% of palladium is sourced from Russia. Input factors, for example, like higher raw material prices, high price of electricity, multiple governments' restriction on import and export. There's a lot of lack of availability of containers, of some of the major challenges on which we are all facing. So on a short term, so we are applying a wait and watch approach until prices settles down. Today for us is the best policy when there is no urgent contract renewal need. We consider also alternate sourcing location near to the site, so very local supply in order to decrease the risk of high lead time and higher logistic costs. And we are also looking for options to diversify the capex requirement across various supplier and across various locations, such as India, Brazil, China, etc. And this would reduce the sourcing risk due to the different restriction that we can have from an import point of view. We are also supporting our colleagues in Russia in order to have a global communication with the key account managers based in the headquarters of those foreign suppliers in order to check if there is some alternative solution in terms of supply, if we can still supply the Russian market, but also in terms of services when there is no local representative of those brands and we need to get some technician from abroad, which is for the moment very, very difficult. And most of the foreign suppliers, they do not provide such services anymore, only by remote or with local representatives. And now I will let the floor to Fabrice in order that he can communicate to us the transport impact within this crisis. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, in logistics procurement, we always like to do more. That's why we have added two more crises, the Brexit and the blockage of Suez Canal that caused a major disruption on the sea freight market. In logistics procurement, we also like to break records. 8 months transit time for a container to reach Taiwan. So all crises have its own challenge. You can see a few of them here with the COVID impact. The demand will increase on sea freight. We had to onboard new carriers for Russia. The freight costs have increased quite significantly for air freight, but also to Russia quite recently. So let's illustrate some of these consequences on the air freight market. So before Ukraine, to illustrate the consequences of the Russian and Ukraine crisis, let's have a look on this example. Before, the flight from GD to Tokyo was going through Russia. Now, to avoid Russia and Ukraine, we have to use a very north routine that creates, of course, more miles, more fuel, more CO2, more staff, and more cost. How this has been made possible? We had a long brainstorming session at Servier, and we had a fabulous ID, innovation, delivery, efficiency, and agility. And what was it? It was this plane, the pivoting plane, being able to go north, being able to go south. And this was so big as an idea that Jean-Louis asked me to duplicate that to road freight. And that's what we did. Look at this. This truck is able to go north, to go south, to accelerate, and to come back to Baalbek if the border is closed. And that's a terrific innovation. Thanks for your attention.
Dear colleagues, good afternoon. My name is Larissa Spolokhova. I'm supply chain director in Russia and Eurasian countries, and I'm very glad to have opportunity to say some words for you today. You know that the geopolitical context in Russia is very, very complicated, and especially for those companies which decide to stay on the market and continue their activity and especially production. This is exactly the case for Servier factory in Moscow. Nowadays we have roughly 13 position of materials and raw materials under sanction, and a lot of supply chain flows are broken. We have to build them again, and in this context I would like to thank you a lot purchasing team, both local and central, for their precious support, for opportunity to work together, to find the new solutions, to discuss, to be in touch, to support each other. And thanks again, and I hope we will do everything to minimize company losses in Russia. Thank you again and have a nice day.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our special channel of Servier Purchasing Team. We would like to give you a big thanks for staying with us, and also give a really big round of applause to all of the purchasers that help us during this journey. Thanks to them.